Let's go.
And we go.
I don't think I need to remind anyone of what happened last time.
I think that the trauma is still quite fresh in our minds.
Yes, I believe so too. But I do want to talk about how at least the first part of this session is going to be a little bit different from how we usually run things, because this is basically the wrap-up phase of the first chapter, and I would like to kind of do little scenes and just fill in the gaps with narration between those little scenes. Okay, so we don't have to go through the rest of these 30 days that you need to stay in Ravengro and look after Kendra day by day, but we can just, go through it more quickly.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is what happened, or is what I still need to do from last session, in fact, because after you put down the Splatter Man, your victory was kind of soured by the loss of your friend and the near loss of the life of the entire party. But once the doctor manages to bring his comrades back to consciousness, at least everyone except Crow, you notice that the warden's badge is back in your possession. You remember having passed it to Visoriana, but you heard her put the Splatterman into his place right after you destroyed him or helped destroy him, and after her voice fades out, what's left of her is a spiritual, kind of like a residual spiritual energy that is still in the badge, and it makes the badge glow softly. Not as much that it would actually cast any useful light, but it has this crackling energy to it. Later you may find out that the badge in fact functions as a rod of lesser ectoplasmic meta magic.
Huh.
So what that means is when you have that badge, you can use it to cast a spell with the ectoplasmic meta magic feat. And the ectoplasmic meta magic feat lets you cast a spell on an incorporeal undead as if that undead was corporeal, at the cost of expending a spell slot that is one level higher than the spell that you're trying to cast. Basically, through the power of Visoriana that is still present in that badge, you hold a little bit of more power, of more sway over the spirit world. Is the idea.
Geier takes a close look at the badge, inspects it, turns towards his companions and mutters, "Well, Crow paid dearly for this. We better make it count."
Yeah. At this point, Arronax still, well, at this point they probably more or less recovered, but he still will be shaken for quite some time, I suppose. Well, he will be still in Raven growth, but after considering, he would probably will offer Emaírel to put it to good use, since It's not like Geier can cast spells, right?
Well, if you don't mind, then I would like to keep it, but if Emaírel wants to study it, I'm sure he can take a look, but lately, the undead, they talk to me, and I feel like I'm getting a better understanding. Not just digging the holes, but they speak to me differently, and I think this might prove useful. But then again, I've seen Emaírel in action, and
yeah, you know, Geier, I mean, when we go back to Lepisdat, I know some actual doctors we could show you to them, you know? Maybe get help.
oh, no, I'd rather.
Well,
I know the kind of doctors in Lepidstadt, and they'll just poke me full of holes in the name of research, and I'll be floating in some embalming jar somewhere. Little pieces of me being studied by all the academics. I think I'm going to pass on that.
Well, I mean, they will put you back together eventually, you know? It's nothing out of the ordinary.
Oh, then I'll go after you.
Well, you kind of already did.
Okay, so who took the badge?
Well, apparently Geier wants
Geier,
to
I
keep
think.
it.
Yeah.
On this
Yeah,
Emaírel, do you
yeah.
have any opinion on who should keep it?
Well, I'd like to take a look at it at some point, but if you want to keep it, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. So Alejandro, just so you know, for a sorcerer, it works like this. You don't need to actually prepare the spells with a metamagic feat, but you can cast any spell you know with the ectoplasmic metamagic feat up to level 3 because it's a lesser rod, so it can only enhance spells up to level 3.
Okay.
3 times.
And 3 times a day. And it increases the casting time by 1 step. So if it's usually a standard action, it would increase the casting time to a full round action.
Okay.
And you still have to expend a spell per day from 1 level higher. So right now you can only enhance level 0 or level 1 spells because you would have to expend.
And I would use my level 2 spell. Cool.
Yes, or level 1 if you enhance a level 0 spell.
Alright. Good to keep in mind.
Okay, so that's that. Okay, so you've with your battle deep below Harrowstone prison, you've saved pretty much everyone in Ravengro from a terrible fate. But there's one person for whom this may be very bittersweet news, and we can cast our mental eye a little bit into the future of that night, and into the laughing demon, where the town's blacksmith is sitting at a table and awaiting her absolutely not a date. That may never come.
So we are still like we're still.
Oh, you're not there. It's just her.
But we're
So.
still like right at the aftermath of the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can skip back and forth if there's
Okay.
anything that you want to do. But
Emaírel, having witnessed that having awkwardly witnessed that exchange, would probably let her know what happened once he got back.
Okay. But it's unlikely that it would get to her in time. Anyway, so you might have to seek her out at the tavern to let her know.
Well, I mean, she will learn eventually of it, so...
Well, we'll see how she learns it. Because
Geier would
Anthony?
take it up, bringing the body back directly to the temple and asking Father Grimbarrow to allow him to conduct the rites.
let's take one thing at a time. Like I said, we're gonna do this in scenes. So this is not the scene of taking the body back. This is gonna be the scene of Joffre at the tavern.
Those left behind.
Yes.
And perhaps as time is passing and maybe Joffre has downed that first drink that Crow bought for her in advance, and she's waiting and waiting and nobody's showing up, and eventually someone does come up to Joffre, not Crow, but a woman who had been sitting towards the back of the tavern, tall, slender, with blonde hair and very pale skin. And it's someone who Joffre knows, not very well, but she's seen her here and there. She's not from around town exactly. She's from a little bit outside of town. Doesn't come in that often, but they've both been there a while, and they both have seen each other before. And this woman approaches Joffre and looks her in the eye with her own light, minty green eyes that seem to catch the firelight and reflect back brilliantly, even in the dim atmosphere of the Laughing Demon. And she looks at Joffre and she says, "Oh, my dear, drinking alone tonight?"
Joffre is startled a little bit, and says, I didn't plan to be completely honest, but looks like it.
Oh, were you expecting someone?
I guess I had a meeting set up. Yes.
Well, it seems you might have a moment before your company arrives, and maybe I can take a seat with you. I am drinking here alone tonight as well.
And Joffre looks to the door, and Evelyn can tell that she's, even though quite some time has passed, obviously, since her meeting, quote unquote, was scheduled, but she's still not giving up hope that the door might open anytime soon. And she says, "Sure, yeah, sure, sit." And she kicks the chair with his foot, pushes it a little bit out. Says, "Sure, sit down."
And this woman sits down very daintily, and she's got a glass of port in her hand, which she swirls and takes a sip of and puts it down. She says, "Well, I hope that I'm not prying, but may I ask who this meeting is with of yours? You seem, well, to be a little less dowdy than usual."
But and Joffre blushes and says, "Are you implying anything? I mean, it's purely business. And she puts or pats a shield that has a weird protrusion on forged on top of it. His friend ordered something from me, and we agreed that he would pick it up here, and maybe we'd share a drink and talk about future engagement as in professional way.
Can I roll like a sense motive on that?
Sure. He's back. Well, but she's. I mean, it's natural one doesn't mean fail, and it's so obvious that Jorfa is uncomfortable with this line of questioning, and it's also obvious from the situation. I mean, she knows Jorfa a little bit, and she knows that she doesn't conduct business at night in a tavern. It's highly unusual for her.
Right.
So she can't quite tell if what's going on. She may think that there's some possibly even shady business going on, or something like that. So she doesn't really have a clue what's so embarrassing to her, but it's not the way she says it is.
So she can tell that something's going on. So she kind of leans in a little closer to maybe the candle that's on the table and lets that light sparkle on her eyes, and she looks at Jorf and she goes, "Oh, come on, old girl, you can spill the beans to me, woman to woman."
I honestly don't know what you're saying. I've only met the man twice, and he's quite friendly, but I intend to keep this fully professional, like I said. And he's from out of town anyway, and I don't expect him to be around much longer. So what's the point?
Ah, I see. I think I'm starting to understand. Well, you say that this is a business meeting, but you clearly, well, perhaps your heart goes one way and your mind goes another a little. But it's a little dangerous always mixing business with pleasure. Something that you have to keep in mind. Anybody who's getting something from you and expressing their feelings at the same time is perhaps suspect.
You're one to talk about suspects, Evelyn.
Oh, I don't know what you mean by that. I just come into town here and there as I need to. I don't think that anyone has any reason to wish ill on me, or that I have reason to wish ill on anyone else.
Oh, sure. Nobody ever said anything bad about you.
No, I'm sure they never have. Well, whoever this person is who you're waiting for, if there's a business transaction involved and he's sure to be leaving town soon, I would be just asking yourself what he might have to get out of you. Is he getting something out of you?
And Joffre at this point would probably get a little bit upset at the implication that he wouldn't just be interested in her as a person. And she would raise her voice a little bit and said, "Evelyn, I think your glass is empty."
Oh, I'm so sorry, my dear. I didn't mean to cause offense. I didn't mean to imply anything about yourself. Only that, you know how these types are. Strangers wandering in and out of town. They never mean to stay. They rarely mean anything good. we Ravengrove folk, we must look out for our own, you know? And we cannot trust those outside, not too closely. So, if I were you, I would bear in mind that whoever this person is, he probably never cared about you. And as she says that, she casts Sow Thought on Jafra.
Ooh. That's a will save, I would assume.
Yes, while she's staring into Jafra's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just gonna roll a d20 for now. See what happens. What's her DC?
17 to that, and Jafra's taking a -2 to her will saves right now.
Okay, she's not gonna get there. So she raises an eyebrow as Evelyn messes with her head, and she says, yeah, I mean, sure. This town has been through a lot, and we've only came through because we took care of each other. That's how it's always worked around here.
That's right. That's right. We look out for
nothing good ever came from out of town.
Exactly. We need to look out for each other around here. Keep an eye out, you know? And we need to be on each other's side because the world is not on our side. So, if I were you, I'd finish that drink. I'd get ready to meet whoever you're meeting and charge them double.
You know, you may be right. Why should I why should I give them a price for my expert craftsmanship that I only give to people who have bought in my store for years, generations even? Yeah, they should pay more.
Well, as you said, my glass is empty. I think I'm going to need a refill, but you take care of yourself, Jafra. And if you ever need anything, you know that I'll be around.
Yeah, I will, Evelyn. I will. She still a little bewildered at the way the conversation went. Took quite some turns. And as she watches Evelyn leave, the door opens and Emaírel enters, possibly a little out of breath, probably still looking kind of like he's been through the meat grinder. And as he walks over to her table, and our mental camera zooms out a little bit, we don't really hear what they're talking about. We only hear the sounds of the rest of the tavern, but we see Emaírel sort of awkwardly looking for words to tell Jafra, apparently prepared for her to maybe even start crying, and instead Jafra just watches him look for the words, trying to explain something to her with an icy cold stare. And as he finishes, she just shakes her head in disappointment, and without saying a word, she grabs the shield that's next to her seat, slams it on the table. That the entire table shakes. Her glass almost falls off, and the surprised Emaírel pays for his shield sconce, and without further explanations, Jorfra turns around and leaves. So, Emaírel, you bought a shield sconce, but
Yep.
thanks to some outside influence, for twice what was, so for 2 gold pieces.
All right, it's 2 GP.
Okay. So our next scene is going to be sometime the next day. You'll, after you recovered Crow's body and brought him to Father Grimborough so that he can prepare him for internment. A date is set for the funeral a couple of days later, and the atmosphere in town is still pretty tense. Everyone is still waiting for what's going to happen next. Sure, you told everyone that you've managed to destroy all the major spirits and that the danger is probably gone, but you have no solid proof. You can't show them the head of the perpetrator or something like that. So everything is still pretty tense. Nevertheless, the next day, the entire remaining council, Vashian Hearthmouth, Murta Straylock, and Shanda, all visit you at your residence in Lorimore Place and bring you the town's gratefulness expressed in solid gold.
Well,
It's 500 gold pieces per PC, and that includes Crow, so that's 2,000 gold pieces. And Shanda says, that was what we had promised you as the champions of our little town. If you went and braved Harrowstone, which you so courageously did, but the people in town were so impressed by how you handled the situation, and even though you have little connection to our sleepy little village, so they pooled an additional gift for you from their own pockets. And she adds in a big pile of coins. Most of it is copper, some silver pieces in there. That amounts to 300 gold pieces. Yeah, you accept your reward. The money is exchanged, and there's some more grateful words. Vashian Hearthmouth, of course, uses the opportunity to hold a longer speech about the virtue of citizenship and the power of community, standing up for each other and these things. And after quite some time, Murta Straylock at some point says, all right, I think you've flapped your lips enough. We still have some business to attend to, so if you please would leave us," she says to the lot of you, and they actually remain behind with Kendra. And they have a longer discussion for the next couple of, well, not couple of hours, but for the next hour or so. And after that discussion, Kendra remains in the dining room, kind of thoughtfully sipping a cup of tea, while the rest of the council, or the remaining council, leaves. So do you guys want to discuss this first, or?
No.
Yeah, finish up, and then we'll...
No. This
Yeah.
Later.
this is as an afterthought. We'll prep sometime after that. Sorry.
Okay. So the remaining council, men and women, then leave Lorimore Place afterwards, looking kind of happy apparently about how the discussion went. Okay, that's it. You can divvy up the loot if you want now.
So, well, Arronax doesn't really feel very well accepting the copper change from the people. So, well, not today, but eventually he will exchange the his quote-unquote share for the supplies to brew the cure light wounds potions.
I don't think it's the right time for this. Why don't we just split it up evenly and we can figure out what to do
Well, I mean,
with it later. I just feel
Do
like
we know anything about whether Crow had any family?
well,
when I knew him back in Lepidstadt, he seemed quite the lonely kind.
yeah, and to be honest,
I think there was somebody in his path, but he never really opened up about it, and wasn't the kind that would warm up the conversation.
Yeah.
If you remember him.
And to be honest, I really only saw him for the first time when we arrived to Ravengrove. So, well, I suppose we could get some info when we come back to the city, but until then, it's anyone's guess, really.
Dr. Emaírel, I trust you with these calculations and to divvy this properly, but in the meantime, I would like to visit Father Grimburrow and see how we can proceed with Crow's funeral.
Of course. I suppose we could at least allot his share of the reward to his own funeral.
Well, that sounds fair. But I do want to bury him before he rises and we have to bury him again. I don't think he'll be too pleased with that.
Well, yes, I suppose it's fair enough. We could ensure he won't rise, but no, I think Father Grimburrow can do that for us.
And with that, Geier heads over to the Temple of Faraz.
Wait, ask him if he can repair his face.
Yeah, like I said, we're not gonna
Yeah,
play this as normal, so we're just gonna go through some scenes. So
Okay.
I'm gonna have to take a little bit of how do you say, of agency away from you, and
that's fine
you
by
can
me.
you can act
Yeah,
within those
yeah.
parameters. Because yes, Geier is gonna head out to Father Grimburrow, and he is gonna discuss funeral arrangements with him, but we're not gonna play out that scene because there's
Exactly. And we
nothing.
can also just skip to the good bits.
Yeah. Instead, what's going to happen is at some point during that day, Kendra is going to run into Emaírel around the house and has two things that she wants to discuss with him really quickly. One of them is that that she was contacted. Oh yeah, well,
Well,
we can talk about the downtown activities later.
After, yeah.
Where was I? Kendra, yeah. So she had two things that she wanted to talk to Emaírel about. One of them was that she was notified that Briarstone Asylum has, in fact, finally replied to the Raven that was sent quite some time ago. And they have replied by using a sending to the sheriff, who they know from previous relationships. And he wrote down a note, and she hands it to Emaírel. And the note just says, "Patient fitting description reported missing from cell with no signs of breakout on Lamachan 16. Sending transport. Will arrive in 30 days." And she kind of hands him the note and says, "Yeah, he wanted you to see this," but she seems sort of absent-minded to you. She, until recently, she was sort of lost in grieving over her her father's death. But you had sort of thought that she was on the road to recovery, and as she, with every pile of books that she put away, every room she cleared, she seemed to get over her grief better and better and turn it into fond memories of her father instead. But now she seems sort of lost in thought again, and she sort of absent-mindedly tells you to find something to do with that mare in the stable that your friend left behind.
Oh, well, okay. Emaәрel will try to figure something out.
Mm-hmm. So you go to the stable inspecting the horse, and you realize that its saddlebags are actually still full. So it's, you, knowing that Crow probably doesn't mind anymore, you carefully take a look at what he left behind. Maybe there's maybe you were hoping to find some sort of clue, if there's any family, any contacts of his, anyone to send his belongings to. And instead, you find a crumpled note. And as you read it, you kind of automatically read it in Crow's voice. Anthony, if you want to do us the honors. Are you muted?
Muted?
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so the note says in a fairly untidy, unpracticed scrawl, "To whoever finds this, if you are rummaging through my possessions and do not feel cold steel pressed against your back, I am likely dead. You are welcome to my things. May they serve you better than they did me, under 3 conditions. 1, if there is a gray mule around, know that she is called Duchess, and she is a kindly creature. Please see that she lives a good life. 2, if you come across a bottle of absinthe, pour one out so my soul may sleep easy. 3, if you find a device about my person, a steel tube mounted on a walnut stock, know that it is the weapon by which I lived and likely died. Its use has never brought me pleasure, and with the many misfortunes I have faced in life, I must wonder if it bears a curse. I implore you not to use it, lest you call upon yourself the miseries that plagued me and my father before me. If you are able, bury the damned thing in the woods outside Ilmarsh, in County Versailles of Ustalav. I should never have taken it from there, and evil belongs at home with evil. May it rust in the swamp for 1,000 years." And it's signed with a name you don't recognize, actually, but if you kind of study the signature, it says Archibaldo Vendrazi.
Oh, we finally hear the true name.
The gravestone will still call him Crow, I suppose.
But no indication of any next of kin or anything like that.
No.
Okay. I guess Emaәрel will look for the absinthe. That's the easiest one to get out of the.
Didn't we drink it just before going out?
Should probably find that mule of his, Duchess.
Well, it was in her
For-
saddlebags, yes.
Yeah. For the mule, I think I'm pretty sure that if we leave a few gold pieces to whichever stable is around, they take her in.
Oh, I figure we could take care of ourselves if we're going to be moving around. I have a cart that I brought here, dragging it myself.
Well, I mean, I can shrink her if she's too much trouble, but well, Crow wanted her to live a good life, so I suppose we should honor them. His wishes.
Let's find her a good home. She won't have a good life with us.
Yeah,
That much.
that's true.
That much I know.
It's probably better for her to stay here on some farm on the outskirts of the Raven Grove. Even though the town is.
There's one farmer you know.
Yeah. Which one? Well, I mean, Arronax knows some farms because of his doctorate, but they are all out in the city.
No, I mean there's one farmer that you've interacted with in the campaign that you know.
Maybe you can drop us to the map of the Raven Grove.
You mean
Oh, really? The what was his name?
What was his name? I don't remember.
I don't remember his name.
The belligerent guy, the one who kept ranting about sorcerers and necromancers.
Yeah, Gyps Heffinus.
Jib?
Oh, he was a farmer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he will be friendly to us, even if we bring him a free meal. I'm not sure he will take her even if we pay him.
Was he the one who was shouting in the funeral?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and during the mob scene involving the fiddler. And I wasn't being serious. I mean, Crow has had at least 2 standoffs with him. I'm sure he'd roll over in his grave if he knew that Duchess was handed to that guy.
Yeah, and I suppose that guy really wouldn't take it even if we pay him, especially if we pay him to do that, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, so right.
Yeah, so what are you gonna do with Duchess?
Well, can you move us to Raven Grove map, please?
Bring her with us, but if you're intent on driving her here...
Thanks. It's kind of easier with a reference to remember where we were. Well, I mean, it's a long way from here to Lepisdat, so we at least can leave her at the horse change at any station. It's not that hard to get rid of a horse, you know. So.
Well, I was thinking like finding someone who already keeps horses or donkeys or whatever, and give him like 5 copper or something. That should be enough to cover for her expenses for a while. No?
Well, yeah. I suppose it calls for gather information check in the town to find who.
Are you just looking for a place to sell the horse, or
No.
I say we take it to the next town and sell it there, and let's be done with this. There's other things to accomplish.
Why sell it?
It's not like we don't have time right now. You know, we can afford to find her a good place.
Emaírel wanted to find someone who already has a stable and wanted to pay that person like 5 gold pieces or whatever amount would be necessary for that person to just feed her and keep her safe for the rest of her natural life.
I suppose at this point it will be better to pay in gold. So, but this looks kind of like a warren for horses.
well, there's no how do you call that? Like no stable, no place that makes a living taking care of horses around here. There are only farmers who have work horses and that's pretty much it.
Well, that works too. I mean, we'd be paying for her expenses for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That's certainly quite possible. You'll definitely find someone who will take her off your hands. That is trustworthy enough not to turn her into a roast anytime soon. And what do you do with his belongings?
Well, that cursed thing we bury, like he said.
Well, he asked to bury it in rather far away place, so I suppose at this point we'll have to at least carry it with us.
Oh, right, be right back up. Baby monitor duty. Be back in a second.
Mm-hmm.
You can figure out what to do with the donkey still.
No, the donkey's gone. The mule, I guess.
I guess I should point out, if you're going through his effects, just so you know, the odds and ends that he had with him between the stuff that was on his person and in his saddle. A lot of things related to the blunderbuss, bullets, pellets, black powder, cartridges, various kinds. He also had a kukri on him. Nothing particularly special. He does have a coffee pot and a bag of beans, a rather large bag of beans. And also, you would have found in his saddlebag a holy text of Shaelin, and around his neck he was wearing a small silver holy symbol, also of Shaelin.
Well, everyone, he's due, I suppose so.
The holy text in particular is a little bit odd because it looks rather old and worn, and it's not like it's like a kid's version. It has like
All the porn in it.
child's like rhymes and stuff in it.
Wait, it is a child's one, or it is not a child's one?
It's a child's one.
Oh, sorry, I was mistaken. I thought it was a raunchy version. Well, well, unfortunately, either way, his last rites would be read by a Pharasman priest. So, but I guess everyone goes where they belong.
So what do you do with his belongings?
Well, I mean, I suppose we wrap his blunderbuss and put it in at the very back, in the bottom of the cart, and try to forget that it exists until we get to the place where we can bury it.
And for the rest, well, I don't really have a clue.
Well, I mean, Arronax is not particularly religious, as he usually makes it known, but, well, I mean, despite how the encounter went, he kind of does have respect for his fallen comrades, so he wouldn't make any remarks about apparent faith of the crow, so he will flip through the holy text of Shaelin, shrug, and put it back. There is not really much he can say about it. I suppose we could put it with him in his casket, at least. But well, he seemed to carry it with him this long, so maybe it will help him on his final journey as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take his worldly possessions to the temple and asks for them to be included
Yeah.
in
Except
his
the
casket.
except the bullets and gunpowder. Although, could we bury him in gunpowder? No, it's too silly.
Okay, so you just take the gunpowder, or you'll bury it with the blunderbuss? What's the plan?
Well, gunpowder is not cursed, so it's blunderbuss is cursed. We can find a use for gunpowder.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I still need to make bombs out of something, you know.
Right.
It's completely good gunpowder is wasting, so.
Okay. All right. So the funeral is set for the next full moon, which in fact is called Black Moon. On Golarion, all the full moons have their own name, and the next one is aptly called the Black Moon. It's going to be on the 10th of Neth, which, as it turns out, is only a few days before, 2 days to be exact, before the 30 days of looking after Kandra run out.
How long after Crow's death would that be?
Yeah, so we have 2 weeks between his death and the funeral. So we have 2 weeks of downtime.
Okay. Well, Emaírel does have something that he'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's going, when he gets a chance to, he's going to write 2 letters,
Mm-hmm.
sign them and seal them, and hand one of them to a courier, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one he will personally deliver to Jorfa, even though that last encounter was a little bit cold.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Okay.
By the way, we still need to return her equipment to her because we
Yeah.
loaned it.
Yeah.
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 At that opportunity, I would think Emaírel, when he returns the equipment, he will hand her the letter as well. And he will find her just as cold as she was during their last encounter, but she accepts the letter. And yeah, but seems to kind of like, you're not sure if she's going to open it anytime soon. She just kind of puts it somewhere and doesn't seem too keen on learning what's in there. The other letter, so there's no regular postal service that goes through Ravengro. But at some point during those 2 weeks, some traveler who's headed in the direction that you need the letter to go is going to pick it up, and with a little bit of gold involved, you'll make sure that the letter has a chance of getting there. Okay, other downtime actions, like I said, so we have 2 weeks of downtime. If there's any crafting that you want to do, we can do this offline, and you can just break down the time and money that's involved. But for now, I would just like to sum up those 2 weeks, because they're mostly uneventful. Your personal mood is probably still kind of somber. You've lost a newfound friend. You've had some traumatic encounters, but you're also, with every day that goes by, you're growing more hopeful that your loss was actually worth something. And with no new strange events happening during those 2 weeks, the people in town are also more and more hopeful and optimistic, and you feel more and more accepted in town because of that. And when it comes to the day of the funeral, you make your way over to the Restlands at midnight, as is customary for a Pharasman rite, where Father Grimborough already awaits you with 2 of his acolytes and the sarcophagus. And other than that, the Restlands are empty. And Geier has dug the grave, not alone, because he's not as strong anymore, but nevertheless, he
A lot
wanted
has to
to
do with technique.
yes, and he probably would have wanted to at least put a token effort in for his friend. Father Grimborough looks stern, as he always does, with a sort of stony demeanor. He awaits for the faithful to approach the grave, the open grave, and you stand there in the cold. And the father wants to start his sermon when you realize that behind you there's another person coming in, and you see that it's Zolkar with his son Pevrin, and he walks up to the grave, and he's just like at the funeral of the professor. He's sort of in this weird place where he is sad, but he kind of has to joke to deal with the sadness. And when you express your gratitude for him coming, he says, "Well, I couldn't miss the murder of Crow, huh?" Sorry about. I'm really sorry for your loss.
Well, Arronax will
We
pat him on the
appreciate you
shoulder.
showing
And,
up.
yeah, it's all right. It's been a very trying day for everyone.
Crow would have wanted you to be here. He had
He had
quite
a good
enjoyed
taste.
your
Yeah.
stuff.
He had quite a good taste for your beverages.
Behind Zolkar, more people round the Dream Wake, the path that leads through the Restlands. The town's council, Straylock, Murta Straylock, Shanda, Favren, and Vashin Hearthmouth, all 3 of them arrive. And behind them, plenty more people of Ravengro. The people from the general store, the whole family. Other acolytes from the temple, even though they're not even on duty right now. Sariana Vey, the mistress of the town's tavern. Some other faces that you don't even recognize have shown up. And soon pretty much what looks like the entire town, or what's left of it, gathers with some respectful distance. And Father Grimborough can't help but smile as he looks over the congregation and says, "The Lady of the Grave rarely smiles, but tonight she might. Pharasma's sign is the spiral, a journey that always returns to where it was before, inching ever onward into the unknown. We've all been here before," he says as he looks at each of you surrounding the open grave. "You arrived here mourning the loss of a friend. And now, as I'm sure on the eve of you leaving this town again, we are here once more mourning the loss of a friend again. So let us now turn to prayer to help us through this black moon together." And he starts his sermon. And the service is quite uplifting. in a way that the one for the professor never was, because it was just, there was not this sense of community that you feel now with the entire town standing right behind you, basically. And then after the ceremony, after each one of you had a chance to throw a handful of soil onto Crow's casket, most of the crowd disperses. But Father Grimborough takes his time to have another quick talk with you as you still stand near the grave, and he looks at the pile of fresh soil and he says, I know it wasn't his time, but there are worse fates than death, you know?
I think we've seen some of them.
I'm sure you did, and especially with his condition, he may have escaped a fate worse than this.
Well, at least his body is laid to rest, and as you say, he may have been spared the worst. At least he will not be returning like those foul creatures he helped put an end to. And in a way, I think that's a good way to end.
I sure hope you're right, Geier. Speaking of returning, he says, and he looks up and over your shoulders, and you see a blonde woman, sort of respectfully keeping her distance, who must, and you're not sure if she was with the crowd before, but now that everyone has left, she just still standing there, so she's obviously trying to get a chance to talk to you. And the father says, I have a request. I believe that you have plans to leave to Lippstadt soon. Is that correct?
Well, as soon as our obligation to Professor ends, that would be the best course of action, I believe.
Well, there is an old acquaintance of mine. Well, I shouldn't say old. And then he raises his voice a little bit and waves her over and says, "Come on over, dear, please, and let me introduce you to these folk."
Evelyn comes over and she's dressed respectfully in clothes of mourning, but they're clearly very elegant and richly appointed.
That's how she looks, elegant and richly appointed.
Yes, and I have a. There we go.
She looks like Legata from Vikings.
I don't know who that is.
This my friends is Evelyn. She is a she is a frequent visitor of the town, and an associate of mine, I would like to say. And I believe she has business in Lippstadt herself, and since she happened to be in town for the last couple of days, I was wondering if you gentlemen would have the kindness to accompany her on her way there. But Evelyn, maybe you explain it yourself.
Well, it is a pleasure to meet the three of you. First, I must say, even on times such as these, we should remember our courtesies. My name is Lady Evelyn Throd. I am the last of my name, living here on an estate just outside Ravengro, but I've heard quite a bit about you, especially over the last few days. Outsiders come to our town, slaying ghosts and saving people from from the dead rising from their graves. That's not the sort of business we normally have around here.
I can assure you that is not the sort of business we are accustomed as well. Arronax sighs and, well, looks at Geier like, well, most of us at least.
Most of us, and we do what we had to do because Professor Lorimore was a important figure in all our lives, and hell, if we don't do it and the dead start coming back, well, what kind of gravedigger will I be?
She kind of lightly smiles at that, and then she says, "Well, I have to confess that my business in Lepidstadt is a secondary matter only. It's really more of what I've been asked of my friend, the father here. That is, well, what is your name again? You, Gravedigger?"
Ah, yes, well, usually people don't bother past the gravedigger part, but if you must know, it's Geier.
Geier. Yes, well,
He stretches out a muddy hand.
she takes it and she shakes your hand, and then as she pulls away, you kind of see, I don't know, anyone who knows any bit of magic recognizes that there's a little bit of prestidigitation to kind of make the soil fall away from her hands as she lowers it again. And she says, "Geier, yes, you seem to be one who knows about returning from death. You seem very familiar with it."
It's been my life's work, and in all honesty, my last few weeks here in Ravengro have had an effect on me, to say the least.
Yes. So Father Grimborough has informed me. The father asked a special favor of me, and ordinarily
If it involves
But-
experiment, I already told Dr. Arronax that I will not be subjected to any.
Oh, no, no need for anything so crass and dirty as that. No, nothing that a doctor would perform.
Medicinal help is not an experiment, Geier, and you need some.
See, no, I have no problem in going to Lepidstadt. In fact, I would like to go to Lepidstadt to try to understand my situation better, but not in the way you're looking at me like I'm some sort of specimen.
You're not a specimen, you're sick. Maybe Dr.
Something.
Some other time.
He's certainly not a specimen, and I'm not sure that he's sick. He's something in between, I would say. Something that's been touched by forces beyond the living. And, as I was saying, I don't normally do favors for common folk, but your case is particularly interesting to me, Geier, and I would like to be accompanying you, at least for a ways, on your business, to try and understand what is happening to you, what you are becoming.
Well, you seem to be well versed in arcane arts, Lady Evelyn. Arronax tilts his head a little bit, narrowing his eyes.
I consider myself a dabbler. She smiles.
Fair enough. I myself dabble in many things.
I do feel like people are reading too much into whatever is going on. I think there's more important things, and this is just, like passing gas. It'll go through.
What does Geier look like right now, exactly?
Do you remember the picture I posted?
I mean, I know what Geier normally looks like, but you said
okay.
that he was...
So, well, he did clean up a little bit for the event, but his cheeks are sunken. His green skin is still kind of like grayish green. He's no longer feverish, but does have like sunken eyes, like, dark around the edges, and his hair that was dark with a bit of gray now has more gray in it. His suit is a bit like fixed up a little bit, but it hangs loosely on him. And he keeps leaning on his shovel.
Okay. All right. So she goes, yes, you definitely have the look of someone who's been touched. She takes a deep breath in, and then she starts speaking to Geier in this like deep growling voice that almost sounds like bones grinding together. And she's speaking a language. I don't know if anyone knows Necril.
No.
Geier does.
Well, now he knows.
Geier
I suppose.
does.
Geier does.
She basically says like the worst curse that she can summon up in Necril, which is probably something about being like you dirty zealous paladin of holy light or something like that.
Geier squares up and goes like, "What did you say? What did you call me?"
And she kind of raises her eyebrows at that. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Yes. When did you say you were leaving this town?
2 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to have my servants make ready for my departure immediately then. I will certainly be coming with you. I think we have a lot to learn from each other, my dear friend.
Arronax just looks back and forth at the exchange silently.
And the father chimes in and he says, "My dear Geier, you know that this is not normal what happened to you. Hardly anyone would have come back from what you've been through, and I'm still not entirely convinced that you're all you know. I've worked with Evelyn in the past, and I really think that it would be best if you would work this out together."
Well, if she can hold her tongue in check, I think we'll be fine. Don't like that last thing she said.
Don't you worry, Geier.
It sounded like the dead.
Have no fear. I know exactly what I'm doing with my tongue.
All kind of innuendo and stuff just passes over Geier. Yes, well, I still think you're all making too much of a deal. Nothing about what's been happening in Harrowstone was normal, so why should I be the exception? I think it is all an overreaction, but I trust you, Father, so we'll do it your way. We're heading to Lepidstadt anyway.
And so you make arrangements to meet Evelyn before you head out on your journey to Lepidstadt 2 days from now.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning at Lorrimore Place, there's a knock on the door. Rather careful, kind of insecure. And Kendra is busy in her study, so whoever is closest to the door is going to get it. And you find Pevrin. And he's kind of awkwardly twisting his cap between his hands. And he says, I guess I'm sorry, I should say, that I didn't tell you this earlier, but I have a letter, and I think it's for you.
For us? Or for someone one of us? Yeah. Arronax comes from his labs smelling like all kinds of very concentrated alcohols. And so I'm meeting the kid in the foyer.
I think it's for you. I was handed it by. I didn't see his face.
It's all right, kid. Come in, let's read it.
And you
Yeah.
invite him in,
Mhm.
and you sit him down at the table, pour him some hot tea, and he says he's calm, but he's just a little embarrassed. And he says, "I've been holding on to it for a while now, and the man," and he very carefully says the words "man" as if he's not sure, "who gave it to me, he said that I should hold on to it until the black moon, and that it's for the people who saved the town."
Huh.
And I guess that's you, right?
Well, whoever that man was, he was very well informed. Well, very well. Let's see what he had to say then. In that case, Arronax will take the letter and open it without any precautions.
Okay. You rip it open.
Well,
It's
the
envelope. First of all, it's a nice envelope. It's really nice.
Yeah, he will
envelope.
slice it open with a dagger. So carefully.
Yeah, and it's heavy. It is heavy, thick paper. It's stark white, very high quality material. No name on it, nothing. Almost clinically clean. Just some dirty fingerprints from Devrin. And you open it up, slice it open with your dagger, and you slide out the carefully folded piece of paper inside. And you unfold it and find a meticulously written letter. The handwriting is so precise, it almost looks printed. And as you read it out loud, I would assume to your friends who've probably gathered at this point,
indeed,
you can almost hear the disdain and the snobbish arrogance that's dripping from every carefully chosen word. And it goes, "To whom it may concern, if you are reading this, then congratulations. The ghosts of Harrowstone have been banished, and you are in all likelihood the ones responsible. I am impressed by your victory, enough so to nearly eclipse the fact that I would much have preferred your quest to fail. Please don't be offended by this. I have nothing against you personally, but I was rather looking forward to observing the unleashing of Harrowstone's spirits and the resulting effects on Ravengro. I suppose I should explain a few things. Firstly, as you may have already surmised, the previous visitors to Harrowstone, the ones whose actions precipitated the threat to Ravengro, were there at my behest. That being said, however, the endangerment of the town was in no way my or their intention. The mission they were there on was not of your concern. Suffice it to say, they accomplished their goals and departed, unaware of the potential consequences to the prison's ghostly inhabitants. It was only while reviewing their actions that I realized the opportunity which they had accidentally unlocked. The chance to witness firsthand the spectral multitudes being freed of their shackles and, more than likely, claiming Ravengro as a literal ghost town. I thought it unlikely that any of Ravengro's inhabitants possessed the intellect to discern what was going on, or the skill to prevent it, yet knew that outside interference might still prevent the release of the spirits, hence this letter. I want you to know that had this spectral emancipation been my primary intent, I would have been most angry with you and felt obligated to destroy you for your interference. Fortunately for you, my lost opportunity was an unlooked-for one, and hence my only emotion at its loss is mild disappointment. Therefore, I bear you no ill will, and indeed hope that should our paths cross again, that our interests might be more aligned to each other. Your triumph in Harrowstone marks you as a cut above the verminous rabble who largely populate this world, and I would much prefer to know those of such potential as allies rather than foes. Still, who can say what the future holds? Best wishes. A.
After finishing the read, Arronax will look at his companions rather gravely and then wait for the kid to finish drinking his tea and trying rather politely but not very ceremoniously push him out of the house, saying, "Thank you. This letter was most enlightening. You did good bringing it here." And he will give him a silver piece for his troubles. Yeah, now go. Have a drink. I mean, a candy or whatever you do. And he slams the door behind him. Yeah, and after this, Aronax will turn to his friends and say, "Well, what do you think about this?"
I think this A person deserves a visit, so we can express our own disappointment at the situation and exchange the kind of intellectual ideas he's been talking about, preferably on the end of a blade.
Well, for once, our intentions seems to align. Whoever this... Yes?
Emaírel would like to take a moment to inspect the envelope and letter.
Of course. Yeah, whoever this A might be, some said that his agents were here at his behest, so it only stands to reason that they were the ones behind the accident that was visited upon Professor Lorimor. Therefore, he was ultimately responsible. And in a flash of emotion, he even slams his fist into the desk. I think his hopes about allying himself with us, or herself, might be premature.
Well, Emaírel, is there anything that you can surmise from that letter?
Well, he's going to take a good minute handling the item, mulling it over. So, Simon, does he figure something out from it?
You're trying to use your what's it
reading.
called? Object reading, yeah. Well, it's not magic. And it's sitting around in the possession of Devrin for quite some time. So any lingering psychic aura is not strong enough to get a read on it.
Okay.
What was that?
Okay, just open
Oh,
it.
okay.
Well, Geier goes to look for Kendra.
Yep. She is going through the rooms.
Basically, just to cut it short, just to express his gratitude for receiving and thanking her for her hospitality, and the usual, like, your father was important to me, and I'm glad we could put this to rest. And with that, he will continue on, not really packing his belongings because he doesn't have that many, but
Okay. Yeah, Kendra, the sort of abrupt thank you from Geier, and he doesn't even really wait for a response by her, and goes packing right away, and she kind of snaps out of it fast enough to add, of course, yes, you're welcome. It was my father's express wish, so I barely had a choice in the matter. I've been meaning to talk to you and the others. Let us meet for lunch and eat together.
oh yeah, well, of course, that would be lovely.
And so you get together later that day with her. That strange letter is probably still going through your head, and I'm sure you have different emotions about it. You may feel provoked. You may feel your curiosity piqued by it, but Kendra has a matter very different to that, and she brings it up over a fine meal. In fact, the best meal that she's served you for your entire stay you've had here. And as you quietly eat, everyone kind of hanging after their thoughts, she finally leans back and picks up her glass of wine that she poured for herself and for each of you too, when she said, I would like to express my thanks to all of you. I know I haven't been very very easy for the last month. I know I've given you a hard time, and I have not been the greatest host. I'm sure, in fact, that my dad would not be very proud of me for how I've treated his friends in our home.
Well, it's understandable given the conditions.
My dear,
Thank you
you
for
were,
saying
yeah,
that.
my dear, you were more hospitable than most things in this town. So we're really not in a position to to give you any grief over that.
Thank you for saying that, and I have felt that way myself for almost my entire life, or at least the part that I've spent here. I felt like this town was a cage that I lived in, like a prison without walls, if you will. But what I've seen in the last weeks, how this impending doom caused everyone to move closer together and stand up for you. You stood up for everyone else, and everyone was there for Crow's funeral. It's just how I feel like maybe it wasn't them that have shunned me, and it was more like I was the one who never really wanted to connect with this town and with the people in it. Yes, there are people like gyps. There's a gyp anywhere you go. But for every gyps, there's a Zolkar, or a Devrin, or a Murta, or a Chandra, or even a Vashian with all of his pomp. You know, they've asked me to put myself up for a seat on the council.
And will you?
I think the city would do good with having you with having your voice added to it. I think your father will be proud too.
Well, this is a decision we can't make for you, but if this agrees with you, then we can only want to support your decision in this point. So
I wasn't sure if I should accept that offer, but Geier, I think you're right. I think my father would be proud of me. Taking responsibility was always important to him. Not just sitting around and letting things happen around you, but changing things for the better. And I think I may find a way to do this even in a quiet little town like this one, she says with a little smile. So once again, thank you for being here for this last month. And thank you for saving the town. And maybe saving me in the process as well. Cheers.
cheers.
And so your time in Ravengro comes to an end. The next day, the 30 days that were requested in Lorimoy's will are over, and you are free to fulfill the second part of his will, which is to return those books to their owners in Lippstadt and receive your stipend. And yeah, you get together, packing your stuff. Do you have your own horses, right? I mean, you got here somehow. So what would be your travel arrangements?
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to keep the mule, but everyone was hell bent on not only not selling it, but paying somebody to take it.
Yes, I believe Arronax arrived in a carriage, but he probably didn't keep it. So he wasn't, well, he didn't buy it, he, well, only procured the transportation only to this place.
Yeah, I'm
As
sure we
they're-
can arrange for a carriage.
As they're standing around wondering about this, a carriage comes riding into town with
Oh, look, a
fine
carriage!
wooden paneling
Yeah.
on the doors. Being pulled by two horses. It looks like it's loaded up for travel. There's a trunk on the back with all sorts of things on it. And it comes to a stop right in front of Lorimore Place. And the door opens and Evelyn steps out, and the driver hurries down from the step to kind of take her hand and help her down from the carriage as she steps to the ground. And she looks at all of you and said, "Well, are we ready for our little adventure?"
Ah, Lady Evelyn, you are most fortuitous to meet this morning. We just were discussing how to procure a means of transportation. Arronax seems to be in a good cheer for this morning.
How fancy
Oh.
is the carriage?
You don't have your own horses?
Oh, of course we did.
Geier breaks out laughing.
I
Oh,
mean,
well, you were serious.
Well, what sort of proper traveler around these parts doesn't come on a horse? Did you arrive here on foot?
of course not. I mean,
Surely,
I-
no. Of course,
I
you would have
I left
you
you
would
up
have
at
paid
Silas
to
first,
ride
yeah.
in a carriage with others, I suppose.
Exactly. I mean, how did you arrive here after all? It's like civilized people, you know.
I suppose then you're looking to ride in a carriage with me.
Do you have any objections to this? I mean,
Oh no, we'll
Geier
just make a little
yeah.
little
I'm not
space.
sure. I'm used to a bit more luxury when I travel, and this might not cut it.
Well, I mean, we can arrange for a
Fancy
casket
words
for
from a
you.
Gravedigger.
We can arrange a casket for you, Geier.
Do you normally arrive in a hearse?
And with this, Geier lets out a genuine laugh. Yeah, I like that one.
Well, I suppose I can have my my valet prepare the interior of the carriage for 4. I sure hope Alaric doesn't show up. We'll be out of room.
It's alright. I have in good authority that he will stay with Father Greenbarrow for some time, I think.
But yeah, she basically has a rather fancy carriage and a team of horses, and she has a driver and a valet who's like a noble woman's maid. And I don't have names for all of them yet, but they're basically going to take care of all of Evelyn's needs while we're on the road.
All right. So I think this is a good place to kind of fade to black.
I suppose so.
All right.
So, do we stop?
That was yep.
Any
That
final
was-
words to Ravengro before we ride away?
Yeah, anything that's dead, please, for once, stay dead. I'm sorry, but you too, Crow.
And as the carriage runs or enters the old mountain road that is going to take you all the way, or most of the way, to Lepidstadt, which is about 100 miles away, Ravengro gets smaller and smaller in the distance behind you, but the memory of that strange little town, its inhabitants, and its hauntings will certainly stay with you for a long time. And there we are.